So this right here is going to be your Scythian tadpole. And one thing I would like to point out first is this blue membrane right around here. What that is the organism's tunic. And what the tunic does is it acts as a membrane that protects the Scythian tadpole as a larva. Going more into the tail, you'll notice this blue structure right here. That would be the tadpole's notochord. The flexible rod acting as structure. Following down the tail, you'll also notice this very, very, very thin, tiny line, blue line, that runs across the tail and into the body. That is going to be the organism's nerve cord. Going more further down into the guts of the organism, you'll notice all these dot-looking structures all scattered throughout the body. That is going to be the organism's pharynx, obviously derived from the pharyngeal slits from the 5 derived characteristics of chords. Lastly, I'd also like to point out this structure right here, this right here. That is going to be the endostyle. If you know anything about the endostyle, that is going to be the structure within the chordates that acts as what we know as the thyroid glands. So it's going to be secreting mucus, that's what we do, but also helping digest food and getting food in and out of the organ. Now, not particularly a characteristic, but one thing I'd also like to point out lastly that I find sort of interesting are these structures right here and right here. Those are going to be your excurrent and incurrent siphons, which basically act as the mouth and the anus of the organism. So food comes in from the incurrent siphon, right here, travels through the body, digested and whatnot, and expelled through the excurrent siphon, right here. So right here is going to be our adult tunica. What you can tell right away is this right here. That's going to be our tunic. That was also seen in the larval stage of the sea squirt. But for the purpose of this dissection, it was cut off and moved to the side to look at the more internal structures of the sea squirt. Starting right away, you'll have this right here, this opening at the top of the sea squirt. That's going to be your incurrent siphon, so basically the mouth. You can think of it that way. Taking in food, digesting it, source of energy. Right below the siphon, these structures here and here, that's going to be where your pharynx is. Now, in the larval stage of the sea squirt, the only structure that we could see was the pharynx. But now, if you can tell by these squiggly lines right around down here, right here, that's going to be your pharyngeal slits were, absent in the larval stage of the sea squirt.
This is Amphioxus, which is a sea lancelet. This is an invertebrate chordate. It has all of the chordate characteristics. Right here, that little dark line is the dorsal hollow nerve cord. Right beneath that is the notochord, and it runs all the way down. And then at the end is its post-anal tail. And then all the way back up here, these are the pharyngeal slits. And running ventrally is the endostyle. It's that very faint line. And then in contrast to the Amphioxus, try to get it in frame, or the Ammocetes, I'm sorry. The Ammocetes this is the larval form of a sea lamprey. And a lamprey is a vertebrate, not just an invertebrate chordate, which means it will have all of the vertebrate characteristics at some point in its life, but you can't see all of those in the larval form. But the way you can distinguish these two apart, a big one is if you look right here, right there, that is where the cranium will form in its adult form, and that will house the brain.
So this would be the larval lamprey, also known as Ammocetes, and we're going to talk about the 5 chordate characteristics that belong to him. To start here, we're going to look at the brain. This would be the brain where my needle is here, those 3 lumps. So the top one here, this is the forebrain, and then behind it is the midbrain, and behind that is the hindbrain. And what connects to the brain would be our spinal cord, which would be right on that needle tip there. The spinal cord is also known as the dorsal hollow nerve cord, and right underneath that, where that needle tip is, and that almost translucent white area underneath the spinal cord would be the notochord. Another thing to look at here would be the pharyngeal slits, also known as the gill slits in this species. So they have the gill slits right there. You can see those segmented parts. Those are the gills. And then right underneath that pharynx area, under those gill slits, let's go down here. Right there where that needle tip is, underneath those slits, right on the point. That would be the endostyle of this species, which is also known as the subpharyngeal gland. That's what they believe to be the endostyle for the Ammocetes. Also here, we have the postanal tail. We back up, which would be these parts here, all the way exceeding past the midgut region. If the more interior you'll go, you can come across that caudal tail. You can see right back there behind the needle. You can see the notochord, and the spinal cord extends all the way to the tail, and that would be the postanal tail region. What I have here is the adult lamprey. On the exterior of this animal, you're able to see what is the pharyngeal slits, so the gill slits. There are 7 sets on both sides of the animal. And how this works for filter feeding is water will go through the mouth and process through the gill slits, filtering out food. Also on the exterior of the animal would be the caudal fin on the back here and the dorsal fin up top on the dorsal part of the lamprey. You can see another one right here. Here's the caudal. This is part of the postanal tail here. If you open up our lamprey sagittally, you can see in this postanal past the midgut region, you have these segmented muscles. These would be the myocepta and the myomeres. Also on the interior of the animal, you are able to see the notochord. So the notochord runs across the animal here. You can see the stiff rod that goes all the way posterior towards the end here. And then running along that would be the spinal cord. So the spinal cord is also known as the dorsal hollow nerve cord, and that is running more dorsally past the notochord here. Also, you can see here, something you can't see actually, would be the endostyle, which turns into the thyroid gland in the adult lamprey, and that's underneath the pharynx area here, up anteriorly. You're unable to see it, but it is there.